open session at 6 p.m., which is now, and we'll report out. Oh, I apologize. So, legal counsel, will you please give the closed session report for the successor agency?
Yes, thank you, Agency Chair. The successor agency met in closed session and staff provided an update regarding the closed session items on the agenda that I previously read into the record. No final action was taken, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. If there's no objection by the agency members, I will now adjourn the successor agency meeting at 6:02 p.m. Call to order of the regular city council meeting at 6:02. Good evening and welcome to the Monday, May 10, 2021, 6 p.m. regular meeting of the Bell Garden City Council. The meeting will now come to an order. Pursuant to Executive Order N2920, please be advised that members of the Bell Garden City Council will participate in today's meeting telephonically. Council members and staff are participating from remote locations. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting live online through the city's website as noted on the agenda. If any city council members should have a conflict of interest virtually, please leave the room by turning off video and muting yourselves. You may still keep listening to the meeting. Tonight's invocation will be given by Pastor Leal, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by myself. And we will go ahead and move into that. Pastor Leal, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor, and all the rest of the councilmen and councilwomen. It is a high honor for me to lead you in prayer, knowing that we're all survivors, but not only survivors, we're thrivers. And I'm very proud of all of you. Thank you for all the great work that you guys are doing. I haven't been in the meeting, I guess, since the pandemic started, but I'm so happy to be back and see each one of you. All of you look really well. So let us pray, and as we bow our heads, understand that we come into the presence of God. So let me lead you in prayer. Father, I just want to thank you for this great team that you have given us, to every citizen of Bell Gardens. Father, as they join to discuss the businesses, Father, of our city, your word says that all wisdom, knowledge comes from you. So as your wisdom be upon them, your knowledge and your presence just guide them, that every decision, that everything that they speak will be for the well-being of our citizens and for your glory. Father, we give you, Father, this meeting. May you be the guiding force. We ask this in the name of Jesus. Can we all say amen? Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Leal, and we're very happy to have Pastor Leal after a long time without him due to this pandemic and us moving on to the virtual platform. But we're very happy to see you here today, Pastor Leal, and welcome.
Thank
And
you.
now we'll go ahead and move into the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone can please stand, face the flag, and put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Thank you. City Clerk, will you please call the roll of the City Council?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Chavez,
Present.
Cortez,
Present.
Flores,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Polito,
Present.
and Mayor Barcena.
Present. Thank you, Madam. Now, we did not have any closed session, so there is nothing to report for the closed session. We do have a few presentations. We have proclamations, starting with the National Small Business Month proclamation. Whereas since 1963, the United States has recognized small businesses and their impact on American culture and democracy through the month of May as a designated month aimed to honor the close to 30 million small businesses nationwide and the amazing people who run them. Whereas small businesses are essential to the success of all communities, creating, strengthening, and maintaining the local, regional, state, and national economies to ensure quality of life for our residents. And whereas most recently, many small businesses were negatively impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic due to the mandated closures and capacity limitations necessary to prevent further spread of the virus. And whereas small businesses are adapting to the new marketplace, learning new ways to serve the community, exhibiting perseverance, and showing the ability to serve in creative ways. And whereas recognition of small businesses in our city is essential to promoting their success and encouraging their perseverance and growth. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Marco Bárcena, Mayor of the City of Bell Gardens, together with the City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of May as National Small Business Month in Bell Gardens to honor the small businesses who provide services to our residents and visitors. Thank you to all of our small businesses. Proclaim this 10th day of May 2021. Up next is a proclamation in recognition of National Public Works Week, May 16th through May 22nd. Whereas public works services provided in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of the public works systems and programs such as water, sewers, streets, and highways, public buildings, and solid waste collection. And whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, is vitally dependent upon the efforts and skill of public works officials. And whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff public works departments is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Marco Bárcena, Mayor of the City of Bell Gardens, with the City Council, do hereby proclaim the week of May 16th through May 22nd as National Public Works Week. In the City of Bell Gardens, and I call upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issue involved in providing our public works and to recognize the contributions which public works officials make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. Thank you to our public works employees and to our public works department for all the work that you do. Proclaim this 10th day of May 2021. We have two additional proclamations, and even though traditionally I, as a mayor, is supposed to read them, I do enjoy the idea of opening the doors to my colleagues when it is an actual highly relevant proclamation. Up next, we have the Peace Officers Memorial Day, May 15, 2021, and National Police Week, May 9th through the 15th, 2021. And for this particular proclamation, I want to give an opportunity, if she can do us the honor, our Councilmember Cortez, who is a huge supporter of our police department, if you would like to go ahead and read the proclamation.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. It is my honor to present the City of Bell Gardens proclamation for Peace Officers Memorial Day and National Police Week. Whereas in the City of Bell Gardens and across the nation, the courageous men and women who protect our citizenry wear the uniform and badge with pride as they safeguard our families, home, and communities. And whereas the Peace Officers Memorial Day and National Police Week, we honor the memory of those heroes who have fallen in the line of duty and recognize all those who put themselves at risk in the fight against crime, violence, and terrorism. And whereas more than 900,000 men and women serve as officers of the law in the United States in varying capacities, to include 51 members of the Bell Gardens Police Department, and share the fundamental qualities of discipline, integrity, and courage. We are grateful to them and their families for all they do to strengthen our communities. And whereas on Peace Officers Memorial Day, we pause to remember those who have made the ultimate sacrifice and honor their memory. And during National Police Week and throughout the year, we urge all Bell Gardens residents to support law enforcement officers in their fight against crime, especially those dedicated to the safety of our community. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that Marco Barcena, Mayor of the City of Bell Gardens, with the City Council do hereby proclaim May 15 as Peace Officers Memorial Day and May 9 through the 15th as National Police Week in the City of Bell Gardens, and encourage the citizens of Bell Gardens to extend appreciation to our police officers for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the Bell Gardens community. Proclaimed this 10th day of May 2021.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Cortez. And the last but certainly not least of our proclamations is in recognition of Skilled Nursing Day, May 12th, 2021. And if our Mayor Pro Tem can do us the honor of taking care of this proclamation, the reason why I asked of that is because she actually proposed this proclamation to be read today, as she is part of the healthcare industry that helps keep our loved ones in care and safe and healthy. So Mayor Pro Tem, if you'll do us the honor.
I would like to share the City of Bell Gardens proclamation in recognition of the Skilled Nursing Day, May 12, 2021. As we know, skilled nursing facilities play a really big role in the healthcare industry, not only for skilled services, but also long-term care. Unfortunately, in the last year, we've noticed a lot of negative news and stories regarding skilled nursing facilities. But I've had the pleasure of seeing how everyday heroes have taken care of patients without hesitating, especially during outbreaks. I had the experience of working in a facility that went from having no COVID patients to having about 80% of the facility COVID positive from one day to the other. And we had dietary aides, housekeepers, nurses, everybody do everything they could to separate the patients that were still not COVID positive without hesitation. So it's a true honor to have this day and to recognize this day and to encourage everybody to celebrate and thank skilled nursing facility workers because they do everything they can to protect the elderly, disabled, everybody that needs help. So let's celebrate this May 12th and recognition of skilled nursing facilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And that concludes our proclamations. It's beautiful to see 4 proclamations come together like this because as you guys all know, we all depend on each other. We depend on the police department, we depend on our healthcare facilities, public works, and our local businesses to keep our economy going. So we really appreciate each and every one of the individuals involved in these fields. Now we are going to move into our public hearing, and I will ask the city manager if you can please introduce the public hearing item.
Thank you, Mayor Barcena. So this item is a public hearing for an ordinance regulating sidewalk vending. And just in brief summary, before the presentation starts, effective January of 2019, so over 2 years ago, state law was passed that established requirements for local regulation of sidewalk vendors. This ordinance basically updates the city's municipal code so that it's in compliance with state law, and also considers the needs of the community of Bell Gardens, the sidewalk vendors, the businesses, and the residents that shop there as well. So I'm happy to introduce Mark Tran from our city attorney's office. He's going to do a presentation for us. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, before Mark starts, I would like to officially open the public hearing. We will begin with the presentation now. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. Mark Tran from the City Attorney's Office. As the City Manager mentioned, I'm here to discuss sidewalk vending. If I can get the next slide, please. So starting off with some background here, what is sidewalk vending? Sidewalk vending is the act of selling food or merchandise on a sidewalk or pedestrian path, public right-of-way. Sidewalk vending can be categorized as roaming or stationary. I'll take the next slide, please. Here's some photos of examples of sidewalk vending activities. There's this sort of a tricycle setup that you see. There's also a display on the floor. There's a fruit cart, ice chests that are being used for sidewalk vending activities. I'll take the next slide, please. And here are more examples of sidewalk vending activity and what it looks like. Take the next slide, please. So SB 946 is the Safe Sidewalk Vending Act, and the next few slides provide an overview of what that does. So SB 946 was approved on September 17th, 2018, and became effective on January 1st, 2019. It was adopted to provide important entrepreneurship and economic development opportunities to low-income and immigrant communities. SB 946 decriminalizes sidewalk vending and limits a local government's ability to regulate sidewalk vending activities. For example, local government cannot completely prohibit this activity and cannot impose criminal penalties for this activity. SB 946 does not apply to food trucks. Those are governed by a separate set of regulations. And I'll take the next slide, please. So under SB 946, there's a number of things that the city cannot do. So the city cannot completely prohibit sidewalk vending, and it cannot prohibit this activity in public parks unless there's an agreement with a concessionaire or there would be unreasonable interference with park activities. The city cannot restrict sidewalk vending to a specific area unless there's a health, safety, and welfare justification for doing so. The city cannot place a cap on the total number of sidewalk vendors, again, unless there's a health, safety, and welfare justification for that action. And the city cannot require sidewalk vendors to obtain permission from non-governmental entities to operate. I'll take the next slide, please. So on to what the city can do. Under SB 946, the city can impose operational requirements and restrict sidewalk vendors from operating in certain areas, such as limiting the hours of operation, requiring that an operator, engage in have sanitary conditions. The city can require permits to be obtained. The city can also require submission of information from vendors, and the city can restrict stationary sidewalk vendors from vending in residential areas or limiting it to roaming sidewalk vendors. The city can also restrict vending near farmers markets, swap meets, or events where there might be a special event permit. Next slide, please. So, some background about the city's efforts to research potential regulations in this area. Starting in February 2019, city staff researched potential regulatory options, administrative procedures, and enforcement issues that might be related to this issue. In October 2019, city staff presented regulatory options to the city council. Also in October 2019, the city council formed an ad hoc committee to study the issue further. And fast forward to February 2021, the city appointed new members to that committee and gave direction to reconvene and to finalize a draft ordinance and bring it back to the full council for consideration. On March 31st, the city hosted a committee meeting and workshop. And throughout this process, the committee received and considered input from brick and mortar business owners, sidewalk vendors, consumers, and other community stakeholders. And the culmination of those efforts are, I think, captured in the proposed ordinance today. I'll take the next slide, please. So, in terms of an overview of potential regulatory options that the council can consider, the council has the option of passing of no regulation. So it's not required, it's not legally required that the city council adopt a regulatory scheme, but it should update its existing regulations to harmonize with state law. Next slide, please. Another option would be light regulation. There's some bullet points about the type of regulation that would sort of fall in the class of light regulation here. Such as, requiring that vendors apply for and obtain permits from the city, requiring sanitary operations, removing trash, things like that, limiting hours of operation, prohibiting vending in parks where the city has concessionaire agreements, and prohibiting vending in areas where operation would create health and safety risks. Next slide, please. It also has the option of heavier regulations, so requiring operators to carry insurance or indemnify the city for any injuries that might arise from sidewalk vending activities, limiting the number of sidewalk vendors that may operate in the city. Some cities that have done this have conducted traffic studies, things like that, to determine, at this particular intersection, looks like we have about 400 traffic collisions a year, and we think that if there's sidewalk vending activity conducted there, that may kick the number up a bit, something like that. And I'll take the next slide, please. So the proposed ordinance before the council this evening is a middle path in terms of the available regulatory options, and the following slides highlight various provisions of the proposed ordinance. I'll take the next slide, please. Okay, so the county health department could issue a permit, and typically you see that in sidewalk vending where there's food involved, food products. So on the city side, the city would require that the operator obtain a county permit. The proposed ordinance also requires that a vendor obtain a permit from the city, and also requires that any permits, licenses that are issued to be displayed on the vending conveyance, the cart, stand, whatever the person might be using, and also requiring that the vendor show city-issued sidewalk vending worker identification cards when asked by a public official. So for example, if code enforcement responds to a call regarding a sidewalk vendor, code enforcement might ask for the permit or a copy of the sidewalk vending worker identification card. And I'll take the next slide, please. So other regulations that are included in the proposed ordinance, there's a requirement that the vendor maintain a clean selling area, providing a 5-gallon trash container and hauling away any trash generated by the vending activity. And that's to address littering and those types of concerns. For example, if I set up my hot dog cart and there's waste generated by that activity, I would have the responsibility to collect all that trash and take it away so that there's not trash left in the public right away. There's also a requirement that signs are affixed on or painted to the cart or stand that the person is using. So there's the ordinance wouldn't allow someone to affix a sign to a chain link fence or anything, or tape it to a wall that they might be working in front of. And electricity can only be provided through the use of a generator or battery pack that's contained on the cart itself, and that's to prevent trip hazards. If someone's running a really long extension cord to an outdoor, to a wall or something like that, we don't want folks tripping on that. I'll take the next slide, please. Flashing lights and sound amplifying equipment are prohibited. That's viewed as being distracting to drivers. There is an allowance for a bell or a manually operated bicycle horn to attract attention from would-be consumers. There's a restriction that vendors not modify carts with accessories, equipment, canopies, tables, chairs, stools, etc. So there shouldn't be an operation that puts up an easy up and a small table and some camp chairs, anything like that. And vending is limited to 7 a.m. to midnight. I'll take the next slide, please. Okay, so vending in residential areas cannot be stationary. So if there's a residential area and you see vending activity, it should be limited to roaming vendors, and roaming vendors are allowed to move through a residential area, stop, complete a sale, and then they have to keep moving through that area. We've also restricted vending within 600 feet of the police department or fire station, and that's for health and safety reasons. Emergency responders need to be able to exit and enter their respective stations quickly, and we don't want folks congregating outside and blocking access. So there's also restriction against vending activity at Ford Park and sidewalks adjacent to Ford Park, where existing vendor agreements are in place, and also no vending within 500 feet of a permitted swap meet or any city-issued special event permit. So for example, if Carnival comes to town and the city issues a special event permit for those folks to sell their merchandise, a sidewalk vendor cannot basically come into that territory and compete with them and take away their sales. I'll take the next slide, please. Okay, so vending may not impede accessibility on public property or in the public right-of-way. That's an accessibility concern for people with disabilities. So for example, a sidewalk vendor should not take up the entire sidewalk and block a person with a wheelchair from being able to access a sidewalk, anything like that. There's a restriction about the maximum square footage that a stationary vendor may operate in, and we set that at 15 square feet. There's also a restriction against selling counterfeit merchandise. And there's a requirement that food vendors use hairnets and food service gloves consistent with county regs for food handling safety. I'll take the next slide, please. Okay, so vendors may not leave or maintain accessories, equipment, anything else on public property or in the public right-of-way after sunset or sunrise, and basically items left overnight will be discarded. What we want to avoid is, again, this issue of litter or folks trying to reserve their spots. You know, I, Mark Tran, as a potential sidewalk vendor, can't, you know, chain my cart to a fence or try to bolt it down, anything like that to preserve that area for myself. There's also other regulations to address, again, this potential distraction by drivers. So vendors may not cause onlookers, customers, etc., to obstruct the free flow of pedestrian or vehicular traffic. And they may not operate in intersections, streets, medians, dividers, alleys, etc. And vendors may not stop, operate, or vend within 50 feet of any intersection or within 25 feet of any red curb or fire lane. And I'll take the next slide, please. And I guess that's the final slide. Thanks for staying awake, folks, and I'll take any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mark, for that presentation. I want to open it up for my colleagues. Actually, because we are in a public hearing, at this time, we'll take public comments. City Clerk, is there anyone wishing to speak on this item?
We have one gentleman that would like to be called. His name is Juan Marin, and I'll go ahead and place the call.
Thank you.
Hello, is this Juan Marin? Juan, this is Jane Halstead with the City of Bell Gardens. I'm calling you so you can state your comments during the public hearing. Are you ready? Okay, you'll have 3 minutes to speak, okay? You're welcome.
And my public comment today on an agenda item is in regards to ordinance item number 914. As interpreted in its text, this ordinance will grant permits to street vendors and at the same time unfairly ban small business owners from obtaining that same license if they sell within 100 feet of a restaurant, etc. Even if you are the owner. I do not agree with this. Small business owners should not have to look elsewhere if they already found with an established location for which they are increased the rent, including in sales tax and city permits. As a small business owner, we are already at a breaking point due to a financial aftermath of COVID-19, a crisis in itself which spurred many to become a disproportion in increasing competing against struggling small business owners. With myself, for example, in another issue at my store, abroad to complain immediately from possible customers, questioning why an item was being offered by street vendors for less than half of what I was and why I was charging tax. I responded with the real reason why. We small business owners are following the law as we have to pay sales tax and rent-free as well. Permits to skip events every Since the street vendors, they are a peace officer way too low prices, they are unable to replicate. If this ordinance gets passed, this text must be edited to exempt small business owners from the requirement to not be within 10 feet from a business entrance or 100 feet from a restaurant. As that of street vendors. Since due to its poorly written text, SB 946 rules that street vending cannot be revoked by a city. Therefore, I kindly ask the city council to lead this issue to a senator in order to fix this, and that way advocate to make it more fair for small business owners like myself to make it through these tough times alongside street vendors with the same rights and equal opportunities. Thank you very much.
Very much for your comments. Have a good night. And that concludes public comments, Mayor.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. If there is no objection by the council, I will close public comments. And at this time, I will take council member comments. We'll start with Councilmember Chavez. Do you have any comments?
My only comment, can you hear me? Awesome. All right, my only comment is that I'm glad that Councilwoman Cortez and I have been able to work on this initiative. It's been something that we saw that our community really resonated with, seeing as this pandemic has been going on. While at the same time, I'm glad that there's been a lot of efforts, not only by the state, not only by our city, but also by the county to push for small business loans, small business grants during these tough times for our small businesses. So with that said, I do hear Mr. Juan Marin. I'm glad that he called to the city council meeting. I've actually spoken with him a couple of times throughout this weekend. And we got to speak about this concern, but essentially for our small businesses, their concern is, can a flower person essentially set up in front of my flower shop, right? The things that I've gathered from our legal counsel is essentially the same resources that have been set up for sidewalk vendors. The same can be done by small businesses as well. They can set up shop on the street as well, and they can start doing it that way. So they want an equal level playing field on this. And at the same time, I do understand that we're all going through this. So with that said, I just want to go ahead and wrap it up again and say it's been a pleasure working with Councilwoman Cortez on this, and I'm glad that this finally made it to the council.
Thank you, Councilmember Chavez. We have Cortez. Councilwoman Cortez, do you have any comments on this?
Yes, I do. I'd like to resonate the comments from Councilmember Chavez. It was a pleasure working with you on this ordinance. It did, we met a couple of times, more than a couple of times actually, with legal counsel, community development department, city manager to work in the intricacies of this ordinance. And we did have in mind safeguarding our business community while at the same time understanding the parameters of the Senate bill that provided for street vending, which is something that we cannot ban, we cannot do anything about. And not only that, but we support our working class community. Every single parameter that we could have explored, we did. In terms of how to safeguard our businesses, how to provide adequate measures so that they can both coexist in our city. And I think that's going to be reflected in today's ordinance. There are some legal boundaries with respect to what we can do. So as Councilmember Chavez mentioned, we can't ban, for example, a flower, stand to be a certain distance away from a flower shop. Unfortunately, the Senate bill does not allow us to do that. So while we hear the concerns of our business community, do be ensured that we did explore every single parameter to try to keep our businesses safe as well, understanding that you do pay high fees to run your businesses as well. But just with that, we worked very hard in this ordinance. And I would like to thank Mark for all of his work and always being so prompt with his responses with regards to legal questions. That is all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Flores, do you have any comments or questions?
I have a couple of questions, Mark, if you can help me out. Well, first, before I go into that, good job, Councilmember Cortez and Chavez, in looking at a lot of the obstacles that have been brought up since, this was presented sometime a year ago. But my first concern is the canopy, so that nobody setting up a food can set up a canopy or easy up. That's what I gathered from it. Was that correct?
Yes, thank you, Councilwoman. That is a regulation that exists in the proposed ordinance, and it's just one of those things where we were concerned with folks augmenting their art too much. So that's one of the proposed regulations.
So my only concern is that I know that if they're preparing food, my, rationale would be that perhaps like tree debris could fall on foods that are like potentially exposed if and when, they're serving something that wasn't sealed at that time. So would there be a specialty allowance for those who are serving food, or would this be a complete ban for all street vendors?
So as drafted, it would apply to all street vendors.
Okay. Well, I just foresee an issue with that. But I mean, if I guess we can always come back and amend if we foresee that.
And
No.
Councilwoman Flores, if I may, just to add a little bit of background with respect to that portion, and the way we drafted those components or those regulations is because we want to maintain our streets ADA accessible as well, so that anybody who's walking through a sidewalk, so that both our pedestrians and our street vendors can both coexist, but do it in a safe way. Because it was our understanding, or we have observed, that there's some street vendors that have taken up the entire sidewalk to where our community is forced to walk around cars, and that would be an extreme danger to them. So I think that was some of the reasoning behind not allowing these easy ups, as to maintain as a part of the sidewalk free for pedestrians.
I do understand the ADA component of that, but I know that there are areas in the city where the easy up would be feasible. So, I mean, I just wanted to address that. If this is something that everybody, content with, it's fine with me. Also, it says that they're not gonna be able to sell at Ford Park, but it didn't mention anything about Veterans Park. Is it because Veterans Park doesn't have the same contracts that Ford Park does?
Give me 1 second here.
Mark, I think Rosanna Tonto, actually, you know what, I can probably answer that question just directly. I think the idea is there is that we generally want to put. Sorry about that. I think generally speaking, we have vendor contracts at Ford Park historically and not at Veterans Park. That's the reason for that.
So I think it isolated Veterans Park. I'm sorry, Ford Park. This ordinance, it only mentioned Ford Park. It did not mention Veterans Park.
Yes, and I think the ordinance only mentions Fort Park because of the existing contracts. We do want to safeguard that. But Veterans Park, yeah, it doesn't have any, so that's where it wasn't mentioned, I
Okay,
believe.
that was alrighty. So then I think my only proposal, I know that you guys mentioned Mark, I just want for clarification purposes, because I do not, I support street vending 1000%. However, my concern are business owners who have someone like a beautiful taco restaurant, and then someone's literally sets up shop in front of them selling the same exact product. And I mean, mind you, the business pays taxes and, employees, insurance, all sort of, whatnot. And so my responsibility would be to also safeguard them as them. So can you clarify how that was not possible? Because I believe that other cities have it like that. So do you know if they found a loophole to do that? Because I think that's something that maybe we should look at.
Okay. Thank you for the question, Councilwoman. And I'll start off with the restrictions contained in SB 946. Government Code Section 51038, subsection B. Hang on, I'm trying to find it here. B3 states that a local authority shall not require a sidewalk vendor to first obtain the consent or approval of any non-governmental entity or individual before he or she can sell food or merchandise. The regulation that you mentioned, prohibiting a sidewalk vendor from conducting a business in front of a brick and mortar engaged in the sale of the same goods was considered by the ad hoc committee. And at the end of the day, it was rejected because of the language in SB 946, requiring a sidewalk vendor to avoid selling, something like tacos in front of a taco shop, a brick and mortar taco shop, is tantamount to requiring the sidewalk vendor to get permission from the brick and mortar business. And that's why we came up with that, or that's why we had to strike that proposed regulation, because it would run afoul of SB 946.
It just seems that, I mean, if other cities were able to do it, maybe they were able to find a loophole, and maybe they interpreted that law or that phrase in a different way, right? And so again, though I do support the street vending and I was a strong advocate for it last year, and I will continue to be, I still just feel that we need to protect our business owners, it just seems, and I hate to sound redundant, but it just seems like they're at a huge disadvantage. COVID has impacted many restaurants. If you look at Eastern and Florence, a lot of them closed their doors because of COVID, right? And so now now have this competition, which there are no way can compete. The prices won't compete, and the staff and just overhead prices don't amount to the same charges that they have to endure. Just seems a little unfair, and just because of the unfairness, I don't see how we can apply this to our city without finding a way to also help our business owners.
Councilwoman Flores, this is Gus Romo.
Yes, Gus.
Staff did research on that. We would definitely like to find out which cities are doing this, because our understanding is that they found the same issue that we did, where they were not able to prohibit them, as Mark was saying, from being in front of a similar business.
I think
if
the
you know of
language
any
looked like
cities-
100 feet away from like a main intersection would kind of cover any commercials. I think that's what the language looked like, something like that. They got a little creative with it.
Okay, well, I think we can definitely look into talking with one of those cities. If it turns out there's something that they've done at some point, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but right now we're looking to go forward with an introduction and first reading, and then the second meeting, they'll actually adopt the ordinance. But if we find out something in between that says otherwise, we can always come back with another first reading and amend it, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yes. If our research in the interim provides us with new information, new language, then we could revise this draft ordinance and bring it back for a first again.
That sounds good. No further questions from me, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Flores. And now we're going with Mayor Pro Tem Pulido. Do you have any comments or questions?
Not at this time.
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions in regards to, well, number one is the canopy issue that was brought up. I just wanted some clarification. Does that also prohibit umbrellas, for example?
No, the idea was to have umbrellas attached to a cart that could move around with a cart, keeping in mind that your maximum area for the ordinance is 15 square feet, so 3 by 5 area, or whichever configuration they want. Canopies, the smallest one that you have out there is 8 by 8, so that's 64 square feet. So again, that came from our ad hoc committee.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying. One of the things that caught my attention there, and perhaps it's already covered in another part of the ordinance, was the electricity option to have a generator there. My only concern is that I have seen generators that are extremely loud, and they're also fuel generators, so they work off of gasoline. And I know that sometimes they tend to emit a lot of smog or, just gas. And I'm concerned that if we allow that without any other restrictions, perhaps there's another restriction in the ordinance that could address this issue, that maybe other street vendors or maybe the local businesses can be impacted negatively by the fumes or even the noise. I know that we have safeguards for amplified sound, which is understandable, but these generators can be very, very loud. I just want to see if you guys have any ideas on how to address this issue. Maybe it's already built into the ordinance.
Mark, if you'd
So-
like. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, for the question. As drafted, we do not have anything to address noxious fumes or noise coming from a generator. As you mentioned, there is language restricting use of a noise amplifier, Bluetooth speaker, something like that, but nothing that addresses noise from a generator directly.
Gus, this is Mike. Can you speak maybe to any existing existing code that may be used to apply in this circumstance for noise and for generators that already exist?
Yes, the business owner would have to abide by the existing regulations when it comes to noise. And the decibel readings are different during the day than they are in the evening hours. So being that the vendors can be there up till 12 midnight, there's going to be a change in the noise after 10 p.m. So they still have to abide by that. If, for instance, they do have a generator that's causing additional noise, they would have to turn that off during that time period or make sure that it's not going over those decibels. Code enforcement staff has decibel meters. We can go out there and measure it and identify that it is over. With the pollution issues, we just have to make sure that those generators are actually working generators because there could be some that maybe aren't are older generators that are causing some issues, with emissions. But again, all of that could be placed on their permit to warn them that they have to have generators in working conditions that are up to standards, and the noise attenuation measures have to be in place depending on the hours that they operate.
Okay, an additional question in regards to the generator element. Would it be helpful to remove the specification of a generator being allowed, perhaps to not put ourselves in a tough situation when, if and when these generators maybe become an issue? And I want to open this suggestion also to the ad hoc, as they definitely were more experienced with the matter and get their opinion on it if possible.
Mark, do you foresee any issues on just leaving the issue mute, as Mayor proposed, not mentioning it, and then if there is a question that arises with respect to that, would there be an issue if we don't mention in the ordinance?
So, I, as currently drafted, the proposed ordinance sort of suggests the use of a generator or a battery pack to provide electricity to the cart. Um, and there's sort of examples, but also there's limiting language there. So we could go the route of striking those examples and just saying, you whatever your energy source is, it must be contained on the cart, and you cannot use an extension cord. So I could rework that language to avoid the explicit reference to a generator.
I'd be comfortable with that language.
Same here.
Okay, thank you. And those are all my questions. So I believe that concludes comments for this particular item. If there are no further comments, I will now call for a motion to approve staff's recommendation. And I will go ahead and make a motion. Actually, I'll open it up to my colleagues that were on the ad hoc. I think that that'd be the appropriate thing. Would anyone like to make a motion, and maybe keeping in mind the suggestion that was brought up?
Yes, I'll go ahead and make a motion with the noted amendments, Mark.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I will go ahead and do a vote. Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Cortez?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Flores?
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Pulido?
Yes.
Thank you. And that's a yes for myself. So motion carries unanimously.
And Mayor, I would just like to highlight our Community Development Department for the amazing work that was done with respect to this ordinance. Our Community Development Department actually went out prior to one of our workshops, and they made contact with every single street vendor that was out there, as well as businesses, to make sure that they were engaged in the conversation so that they had the opportunity to attend our community workshop. And I know they also have a full educational campaign that they will launch after, or if we do pass this ordinance. So I do want to highlight the work that was done with respect to informing the community.
Thank you, Councilmember Cortez, and thank you to staff, thank you to the ad hoc, and thank you to the residents that participated in this process. I would like to go ahead and officially close the public hearing as well and move on to the next item. We will now, one second, please. Okay, now we will now move to public participation on agenda items only. City Clerk, are there any speakers?
There are no speakers, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Seeing none, if there's no objection by the City Council, I will close public participation and we'll ask our city manager if he has a city manager's report for us.
Thank you, Mayor Barsina. I just want to make a couple notes. Last Monday, about this time, the community stakeholder survey closed. We had over 200 respondents, and just want to thank the stakeholders that are out there for taking the time to fill out those surveys. It took about 4.5 to 5 minutes to fill out, so it's very, very valuable and much appreciated in sharing those opinions. Also, last Tuesday was a vaccination site that the city put on at Bell Gardens High School, and there were 600 vaccines available. 594 of them were administered. So pretty impressive. 99% of them were used and included 122 people that were just in the 16, 17, 18-year-old range. We've got another vaccination this Wednesday, May 12th, from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. At Veterans Park. Walk-ins are welcome, and also you can go to myturn.ca.gov, and it's going to be Pfizer vaccines. Also want to make note that this Saturday, May 15th, is our second May food distribution. So there'll be, this is the second one of the 2 monthly food distributions that the city is doing. There'll be 500 boxes of non-perishables and mixed goods. Also want to just mention Mother's Day. So just yesterday and today, thank you for all the mothers out there, aunts, grandmothers, and caretakers. That's much appreciated. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, City Manager. Now we're moving on to the consent calendar. Does any member of the City Council wish to pull any item for separate discussion? Okay, seeing none. May I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll move to approve Cortez.
Second?
Motion by Cortez, second by Chavez. I will go ahead and take a vote. Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Cortez?
Yes.
Councilmember Flores?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pulido?
Yes.
And yes for myself, so the consent calendar is approved unanimously. And now we're moving on to our discussion items, 8 through 10. City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 8?
Yes, thanks again, Mayor Barsina. This item is the Community Stakeholder Priorities Survey results. Before we get started with the presentation, I just want to say thank you to our Senior Management Analyst, Hyla Soto, and our 2 Executive Assistants, Annette Clark and Monica Vargas. The survey was from start to finish, set up in-house. Typically, these are done using some outside help, either consultants that prepare and conduct these surveys on a regular basis. This was a great learning experience, I think, for the staff members, for myself as well, in how to set these surveys up using QR codes. And I think we're going to be able to leverage that experience going forward into the future. Please pull up the presentation. Second slide, please. So just kind of as a reminder here, there's usual community stakeholder participation. I'll go through some of this quick because you've seen it before. There's public workshops, public hearings, council meetings. Next slide, please. We decided it also made sense to do an enhanced stakeholder participation tool. So to kind of reach out and see if we could get stakeholders to provide a little more detailed information than what we're used to getting. Normally, it's pretty limited to very engaged stakeholders that would show up at a council meeting, show up at a public hearing. And in this case, we reached out to people in a number of ways. And when we talk about stakeholders, we were looking at residents, including renters, owners, businesses, property owners that aren't residents, and nonprofits. Next slide, please. The contents of the survey. So it was bilingual. It had 7 questions. Some were mandatory, some were optional. We asked for respondent stakeholder type, ranking the city services, and then we had additional space for additional information. Next slide, please. The survey, it's not noted on here, but it took between about 4.5 to 5 minutes for somebody to fill out. So as I mentioned, as part of the city manager report, very thankful to those stakeholders that took the time to actually fill the survey out. It's very thoughtful of them, and again, we received over 200 survey results. We had name optional, age optional. We'll go through some of these details. Address, what type of a stakeholder were they, ranking the surveys, the services in priority order for their individual needs, and then 3 additional priorities. Next slide, please. The priority list. So we do, again, kind of going back to what we talked about before. We developed the priorities list, really looking at the issues that the council has been dealing with over the last 12 to 24 months, looking at previous budget discussion items, and things of that nature. So obviously, it's never going to be as comprehensive as it could be. There could be 50, there could be 100 questions. But at some point, I think when we're asking people to take 4 or 5 minutes of their time to fill out a survey, that's somewhat doable. When it starts to get to be 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes, becomes a little more difficult. And I think we can get some good information with the list that we have here. Next slide, please. Just again, kind of talking about the survey, it was primarily intended to be online. We use SurveyMonkey. We bought a subscription to SurveyMonkey that we can use over the next year. We also made paper surveys available at city offices. We had 9 ballot boxes that had surveys in Spanish and English that were available at the police department, city hall, community development desk, public works, and then recreation community services locations. The next slide, please. We also did a direct mail survey. As you remember, we wanted to, there's always that concern that somebody could fill out multiple surveys. Just based on the results that we got, and I think we stated this at that time, we trusted that that wasn't going to be a major issue, that people are generally, trying to do the right thing. And if they're going to give 4 to 5 minutes of time to fill out a survey, that, they're not intending to stuff the box, if you will. And we don't think we saw that. But just as a side check, we also took a sample out of the 10,000 addresses that are within the city. We took a sample of 200. We just did a Google random generator. It picked the number 47. So we went to the 47th address on the list, and then every 47th after that until we had 200 surveys. We sent them out with a QR code that was different from the survey that the general public could fill out. So there's no mixing of those 2 surveys, and the point was just for comparative purposes, to see if there were any material differences in the results. And you'll see in the results there are some differences. We got limited response, so a little disappointed on that part. Next slide, please. But it's still worth looking at. So as a refresher, the survey opened on Thursday, April 15th, and it closed on last Monday on May 3rd. Outreach was conducted through social media, city website, city offices, and also through that limited mailing with a reminder mailing to ask people to please fill out the survey. The results are compiled and being presented to council. So again, this survey closed 7 days ago, and our goal here was to, there's a lot of data there, but our goal was to get this to council, it was like fresh fruit, as fresh as possible. So we didn't have as much time to really dress it up, but we really wanted to get the information to you as quick as possible, as the budget process is going to be starting soon. Next slide, please. So total responses of the general survey, we had 216 total responses. Of the 200 direct mail surveys, we got 13 of those back. Next slide, please. Kind of breaking that down a little more for question 1, optional. So the general survey, 131 answered the name. And the reason we show this is it gives you an idea of, if somebody's committed to putting their name down, they're not going to fill out a second survey. Just because somebody doesn't put their name down doesn't mean they're going to fill out multiple surveys either. But seeing a 61% result on the general survey and a similar result on the direct mail, I think gives us some reasonable confidence that people, again, didn't just plug in a bunch of survey results. Next slide, please. Question 2, what's your age? This was an optional question. And interesting, on the general survey, you see that it skews into the 25 and 40-year-old range. So about 44% of the respondents came from that range, with the second highest being in the 41 to 56. So about almost 70%, or about 70%, came from that 25 to 56-year-old range group. And when you look at the direct mail, you see similar results as well. I think if you look at the 33%. It's about 80 some percent were in that age group as well. So similar respondents, but skewed younger on the general survey side. Next slide, please. What's your gender? Optional. You can clearly see on both sides, we got response rates from stakeholders that identify as female at a significantly higher rate than male or as other. Not sure there, maybe, you know, maybe being Mother's Day, I'm not sure how to look at this. Maybe there's a certain portion of the population that's more diligent than than the other portion of the population. So I'm not sure what to derive that to, but it's clear that the response rates are much higher among those identifying as female. Next slide, please. Are you a Bell Gardens? This identifies what stakeholder group. So on the general survey, I think ideally the expectation, at least from the staff perspective, if approximately 70% of the residents of Bell Gardens are renters, we're hoping to see about a 70% range on the response. And we're pretty close to that, about the 68, 69% were renters. About 26% or so were property owners that actually live on the property. And then we got very small response rates on the business side of it. We did work through the Chamber of Commerce. We got some responses from uh, property owners that do not live in the city as well. Direct mail, you notice it skews more toward, the results skew more towards property owners. And I'm not sure, you know, just anecdotally, why may that be the case if you have a renter and you have a property owner that receives something in the mail that's going to take 5 minutes to respond as far as the city. Maybe there's an argument that the property owner has a longer term view of their residency in the city as compared to the renter. Not sure if that's true or not. Difficult to determine why we got a higher response on property owners on the direct mail, and that may be used to identify why there are some differences in the results between these two groups as well. Next slide, please. We stuck on question 5? Okay. While that we're working on moving forward to the next slide here, I'll talk a little bit just about, I think there's some interesting information as far as the way the survey was designed and the way the survey functioned. From a staff perspective, you know, we really wanted to kind of focus on a bilingual survey specifically related to Spanish. And so we initially set the survey up behind the scenes in Spanish. And just some lesson learned here. Once it was set up that way, it's very difficult to manipulate and interpret the data in English, which is okay from a resident perspective, and then, you know, maybe on the staff side not as easy. So a lesson learned for us going forward on the next surveys is we will create them in English and then convert them to Spanish. And because SurveyMonkey's built more from the English perspective, we spent a lot of time, I think, in the last 48 hours prior to the agenda going out dealing with that issue. So that's something that we learned. Also, just bullet points, information while we're getting this presentation back up. I think normally for this type of a survey to have it be created, implemented, results, I think we probably would have spent somewhere in the $5,000 to $15,000 range, somewhere in there. You know, obviously we spent staff time, but I think it was a staff development practice that or exercise that is value that the city's going to benefit as we go forward and we conduct new surveys. So if I add up the time that I spent, the other 3 staff members, I think probably 40 to 60 hours, somewhere in that range, from the development side of things, just getting the survey set up and then looking at the results. So, and it was interesting team effort as well too, and challenging since we haven't done these types of surveys before. The longer it takes, oh, there we go. Question 6. Okay. Rank the following community priorities. There's a lot of information here, but if we start over on the general survey side, on the staff report, I think I had identified the top 5 on each side of it. A lot of these you'll see there, we probably could put these into bands. A lot of them are very closely packed in. So if you look at the public safety and affordable housing on the general survey side, they're right there with each other. I think a few decimal points off. And what I kind of did is I looked at the top 5 and sort of looked at the top 5 on the direct mail too, just to see what lined up. And you see affordable housing was the #1 item on the direct mail side. It was #2 on general survey. Now that one, I think from a staff perspective, we looked at, and do people understand that to mean that the city should be supportive of, what is known in the municipal government as affordable housing development? Or do people probably look at that and say, affordable housing, hey, rents need to quit going up so high, and mortgages and the cost of houses shouldn't go up so high? And I think people are probably looking at it more from that common perspective as opposed to necessarily saying the city should develop affordable housing, although that may be a function to achieve the goal of cheaper housing. So I don't think that's really a surprise to anybody with the cost of rent and the cost of house prices going up over the last, I guess 5 years or so now. On the public safety side of it, not surprising. That's in the top, I think, #6 on direct mail, #1 on the general survey. That's a lot of that's probably going to depend on people's experience. Have they had a car broken into? Have they, been a victim of assault, something like that? Um, that's, I think, generally to be expected in most municipal governments. Interesting too, if you'll see #3 on both sides was city financial stability. Um, you know, I think on the surface, I would like to believe that that means, the residents and the stakeholders that fill out the survey read our comprehensive annual financial report and look at our budget documents, and I suspect that's probably not exactly the case. So we kind of suspect that's a mix of financial stability of the city as an organization, which is what we intended that question to mean, but also just financial stability to the residents and the stakeholders of the city. I think there's probably a combination there. And I think again that's informative. From a city as an entity, financial stability. If that were really the third issue of all of the stakeholders, I think that we are in a good spot from the perspective of we understand where our financial condition is, and we're doing things to continuously improve the financial stability of the city. So residents that we're looking at it and stakeholders from that perspective, I feel confident that we're moving forward. And I think for those that just mean general financial stability, if you look at some of the community benefit programs that have been implemented by the council over the last 6 to 12 months and previously, I think those issues are being addressed to the extent that the municipality, can address those issues. Looking at, community recreational services, that's #4 on both item, on whether direct mail or general survey. I think, that's again probably not a surprise. If you listen to the city manager's report, most of those items are usually items that are coming out of the recreational services group. But also, I think there's recognized a pent-up demand for recreational services, especially already existed in the community. It's a young community, which I think naturally demands more recreational opportunities. And then coming out of COVID as well, it's not a surprise. I think there's an even more increased demand um, as in the past. If I touch on code enforcement, it's #2 on the direct mail, and it's #6 on general survey. I think we just addressed some of those issues when we talked about street vending, sidewalk vending, um, and also just with noise issues. We're going to be talking about fireworks here on a agenda report here in a couple minutes as well. So I don't think there's any real surprise there that comes in as as a top 5, top 6 item. Community social services, Also, just based on the socioeconomic needs of the community, and then also coming out of COVID, I don't think there's any real surprises there. And again, a lot of this survey, I think the idea here was to look at those results, and instead of just having anecdotal information that we all gather from talking to residents, stakeholders, family members, council members, commissioners, um, this is a lot of this you might go, hey, this is information we know. Well, this is really good confirmation here for some of those things. Um, and I think we're presenting the results here as they're, really fresh off the stove and everything. But we will revisit this as part of the budget process as well to kind of line this up with where some of the resources are being spent as we go forward. And if we just kind of go down the line, on the general survey, we got a much bigger response, and so I tend to spend more time focusing on those surveys. Homelessness, rent control. So these are issues that the council hears on a regular basis. That in some ways we have easy solutions, some ways we don't have easy solutions, and we're moving towards doing what we can. Government transparency came in pretty high on both sides, top 10 on both sides. I think I'm proud in the time that I've been here in increase in transparency that we have. If you look at council meetings are streamed live on multiple platforms. The videos are available on the website 24/7 for people to look at. We're able to, the council was kind enough to adopt action minutes because of those improvements at the last council meeting. So I think we've recognized these are issues and we've done things to move forward. Disaster preparedness. That's one we don't talk about a lot. I think we've had some things, you've seen that in action during COVID, as far as the council and staff moving very quickly to address things. We declared an emergency. We dealt with, there was a hotel issue that presented itself with the city, and there was a rapid response to that. And then as far as the level of effort that went into getting testing centers, not always successfully, but the level of effort, testing centers and putting protocols in place. But seeing disaster preparedness there at the top, I think gives us some room for thought from an earthquake perspective, drought, things of that nature that we haven't talked about a lot. Parking comes in right around number 10. I think there's been some times over the last 12 to 24 months that I think parking would have come in as the number one item prior to COVID. It's in there, but a little bit surprised that it falls down so far below code enforcement, for example. And so I think again, code enforcement looking at really daily quality of life issues. If you got your parking situation kind of figured out, you can control that to some degree. It's harder to control fireworks going off regularly at an undisclosed location where you don't see anybody lighting them, or parties, noises, dealing with neighbors where where you're less ability to just control it yourself without, without potentially involving the city. Graffiti removal comes in about the same on both sides of it. I think on graffiti removal, we're pretty quick here compared to other places I've worked as far as responding to graffiti. If I get a message from a council member or from a resident on Saturday at 8 a.m., the graffiti's usually gone by 9 a.m. If somebody calls me and they call the graffiti hotline with resident call will beat me any day. So I think we're really doing a pretty good job there. Just kind of as we go down, commercial development, a little bit higher on the direct mail, right in the middle, aquatic center right in the middle. And if I look at bands again here, if you just look at the general survey, I kind of look at it as, there's clearly sort of groupings. There's your top three. You've got about another six that kind of line up together as sort of a second tier, and then a third tier that are kind of tightly grouped between government transparency at the aquatic center. And I think that this may be helpful as we move forward in the budget process, kind of tiering some of these as well, grouping them together, and then senior services through water quality, and then down to sidewalk repair. And I think, again, as you look at some of these, there are things that I think we recognize that we do pretty well, that stakeholders are happy with, generally speaking. Sidewalk repair, I know, if you trip over a crack in the sidewalk that's properly marked, you're going to complain about the sidewalks, but generally speaking, there aren't any cracks that aren't properly marked, that aren't scheduled to be repaired. Trash recycling, our residential service provider, Athens, our commercial service provider, seem like they're doing a good job. The issues are usually sometimes incidental, related to parking issues that cause bin placement issues and things like that. Golf course, tree trimming. So I don't think in coming through, I didn't see anything that really jumps out as being surprising, that surprising that it received ranking on the high end of things, and nothing really on the low end. Everything seems to be about in place. I thought maybe water quality would be a little bit higher, but I think that's a function of service being provided. That although there's complaints sometimes about somebody has a smell or a color issue with their water, I think generally speaking, um, people feel like the service that they're receiving is reasonable. Next slide, please. Again, as far as additional priorities go, so just as quickly as we're turning this around, we have not gone through yet on the additional priorities. I kind of grouped them to see if I think they're going to fall into little funnels. Some of them I saw were redundant just by looking through. They're attached as exhibits to the staff report. On the general survey, out of 216, 36 or 17% answered with some additional priorities. On the direct mail, there were 3 out of the 13. So we'll go through those and kind of bucket those in to see if there's anything that's not showing up in the priorities we listed that maybe warrant special mention. Next slide, please. So I think before we get to questions on it, just again, what was the purpose of the survey? Was to get another data point out of a multitude of data points as it comes to the council looking at the resources that the city has and the resources that the city spends on services, particularly as we lead into the budget process. And so as part of our budget workshops and things like that, we'll incorporate this information. It's not intended to be necessarily the top piece of information. One of I think probably 30 or 40. And if you're looking at resources and you have a service where you're not sure how does the community feel about it, this may be a tool where you can look and get another sense. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions about the survey process, the results, and any potential future use.
Thank you, Mike. I will open it up for my colleagues for any comments or questions.
Mike, I just wanted to say thank you for this. I think this is phenomenal. I don't think that we've ever done this. I know that in the past we wanted to send out surveys, but this was done all through staff. And I'm so grateful that everybody is at a capacity and a caliber that can process this information and present it so quickly and so thoroughly. So thank you for that. This obviously is something to look at when we are putting together the strong components of our fiscal, uh, just our monies. So thank you so much for that. And to everybody that participated, Hayla, Sanette, who served as the interpreter, I believe, right? So everybody else that participated in this, and to all of the residents that took the time to take the survey, we really value your information, and it really does give us a map of what you guys are looking for. So I'm grateful that you guys are participating, and that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I just want to also thank staff. I think this is an amazing project. I'm all about doing in-house projects. I used to do quite a few when I was an employee here in the city, and I think they do offer our employees an opportunity for growth. And this particular one is just a great way for not only the council, but the entire city to reflect on and get a preview of what really their neighbors are interested in. So one of the things that I told our residents when I was promoting this survey was that they will be able to look at the results. So I know that they can come on here and look at the results through the city website by finding the agenda and looking at this presentation. But are there any plans to have these results maybe put out on a post, perhaps on Instagram, or the condensed version, and then also maybe make the data available for any of the people out there that may want to tinker with it or actually look at it and sort it in different ways?
Yes, Mayor Barcena. I think we wanted to present this information to the council first, to give you an idea of what we have here, but definitely I think social media post sounds great. I think we can give it its own webpage that we can link to and make all the information available. It's nothing hidden, and I think all valuable information. So we can do that.
Perfect. Thank you so much again, and thanks to staff for stepping it up and putting this together. You guys saved us thousands of dollars by doing this project, so thank you. Any other comments or questions before? Okay, so can I have a motion to receive and file this information?
So moved.
Any seconds? I will go ahead and second that then. So a motion by Chavez to receive and file, second by me. Chavez,
Yes.
thank you. Cortez,
Yes.
thank you. Flores,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Pulido,
Yes.
and yes for myself, so motion carries. City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 9?
Thanks again, Mayor Barcena. This item here is a receive and file, but it's a discussion and update of fireworks safety laws and enforcement. As we come into the 4th of July holiday period, I think as we all know, maybe a few weeks before, a few weeks after, there are a number of fireworks that are out there on the streets. The council, almost 2 years ago, adopted a municipal code that bans fireworks altogether from the city of Bell Gardens. Obviously, that's a tall order as far as ensuring that there are no fireworks used, that we're doing things to educate the residents, that we're doing things to ensure compliance. And it's an effort that I think is going to take many years, but we're committed. And at this time, we'll go ahead and turn it over to the police chief to give an update from the police department perspective as far as fireworks safety law and enforcement. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. First of all, this presentation is just kind of to let everyone know what the police department is doing moving forward here as we head into the 4th of July and the months leading up to it. We'll go ahead and get started here. I think we're on this. There we go. A little background. For more than 30 years, safe and sane fireworks were legal in the city of Bell Gardens. So were the sales of safe and sane fireworks. In 2019, the Bell Gardens City Council voted 4-0 to ban all fireworks in an effort to limit injuries, pollution, and the stress that fireworks can cause for those with special needs and those who suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, as well as our pets. Thus making the possession, the sale of, and the discharging of any fireworks, including safe and sane fireworks, illegal within the city of Bell Gardens as of January of 2020. What you see below that, the Bell Gardens Municipal Code, basically is the result of the wishes of council back in 2019, eliminating the use, sale, and discharge of safe and sane fireworks within the city of Bell Gardens. This is just a quick video. I'm not going to play the entire video, but this is of LA County last year. Let's see here, come on. And what we need to remember here is in LA County, all fireworks shows were basically banned, except for in some cities that allowed safe and sane. But the ones you can see from the air here are obviously all illegal fireworks due to the fact that, and we know that because there was no legal fireworks shows in the county of LA. This goes on for 2 minutes or so, but you can see that it's a problem that is Southern California wide, not just Bell Gardens. All right, let's see if I can get it to change. So in 2020, firework-related calls for service. The laws governing fireworks in Bell Gardens are clear. As of July 22nd, 2019, all fireworks, including Safe and Sane, are illegal in the city of Bell Gardens. Yet, in 2020, BGPD received and responded to 153 firework-related calls for service. Officers and residents reported hearing and seeing more illegal fireworks than in past years. Several Southeast police chiefs stated that their cities also experienced a significant increase in illegal fireworks in 2020. Just for comparison, and kind of shows you how understanding our residents are in our city, because we know that we could have had way more fireworks than that, our calls for service in 2020, and especially on the 4th of July. So if you look at ours in the top left-hand corner of the chart, Bell Gardens firework calls in all of 2020 were 153. In June of 2020, we had 83 leading up to the 4th of July. And then in the month of July, they dropped down to 30. And then on the 4th of July, we had 13 calls for service regarding firework-related calls. I'm not going to go through them all, but you can look at our neighboring cities and the number of calls for service that they reported. I think if you just take the 4th of July, you can see that we are significantly lower. Although I don't think the firework activity in our city was lower. I just think that our residents are a little bit more patient, maybe, and understanding of their neighbors, and chose not to call on the 4th of July, knowing that that's what they expected. But you can see in Bell, they had 87 calls on the 4th of July. And then in Downey, 173, and Southgate, 115. Did you know there were 12 firework-related deaths in 2019? Over 10,000 injuries were treated in emergency rooms across the United States during the calendar year of 2019. 73% of those were reported between the time of June 21st, 2019 and July 21st. So within a month, 73% of those injuries took place, or 7,300 injuries, if you wanted the number. Men accounted for 66% of those injuries. Children under the age of 15 years accounted for 36% of those injuries. And nearly half of the estimated emergency department treated firework-related injuries were individuals younger than 20 years old. So it's definitely an issue with our younger population, especially, and it's heartbreaking that we had an incident last year in 2020 where a juvenile was injured severely from illegal fireworks. So the firework laws, the main ones that our officers are able to enforce during the 4th of July holiday and leading up to the 4th of July is our municipal code, which we spoke about earlier, that covers now safe and sane fireworks and illegal fireworks. California Health and Safety Code helps us with individuals who store and sell fireworks, as well as possession without a permit, and then sales or delivery to persons under the age of 18. The goal this year and every year is to hopefully impact our community in a positive way, to at least try to educate our residents, try to, through high visibility patrols, kind of slow the actual individuals from lighting the fireworks. However, fireworks, especially the illegal kind, can be lit from areas, concealed areas. They fly for long distances and at high altitudes, which makes it very difficult to pinpoint where the actual violator is taking place. So people have asked multiple times over the last year and leading into this holiday season, what's the best way to report fireworks and what can they expect? So holidays like New Year's Eve and Independence Day result in significantly higher call volume to our 911 dispatch center each year. As a result, callers should expect to experience longer than normal answering times, particularly on our non-emergency phone lines. What happens is our dispatchers handle all the emergency phone calls as they come in, and when they are done with those calls, or when there's no emergency phone calls, they can get to the regular phone lines and handle the non-emergency calls for service. Callers are asked to please use the appropriate phone number and to be patient with call takers. Residents calling to report injuries or fires resulting from fireworks should continue to use 911. Anything that requires an immediate response, we recommend, or is a significant danger to our community, that they utilize 911. Residents calling to report property damage from fireworks and residents calling to report individuals actively lighting fireworks are requested to call the non-emergent line, which is 562-806-7601. Heading into every 4th of July or summer, we put together enforcement plans on how we look at and how we're going to enforce different crimes or illegal behavior moving into a certain time period without the year. And 4th of July is no different. Understanding that we had such a huge problem last year with it, a couple months ago, I assigned our detective unit to put together a enforcement strategy moving into this June and July. I'm not going to go into detail to give away all of our secrets, but part of the strategy will be to do the following. During the months of June and July, the department will be deploying special assignment officers to focus solely on possession, use, and sales of illegal fireworks. The plan will be a zero tolerance approach. If you're contacted and you're in possession, you'll be cited. If you're contacted and we're able to determine you were the one who ignited the firework, you will be cited. If you are selling fireworks from either a business or residence or from your car, and you are contacted, you will be cited and arrested for the sale of the fireworks. The instruction and the direction given to our personnel during the June and July is a zero tolerance approach. We will not be issuing any written warnings, or maybe, take them in the house or destroy them, and we'll let you go. This year, it'll be a zero tolerance, like I mentioned. The difficult thing about fireworks and is that in order for an officer to cite an individual who discharges a firework, they must be personally witnessed. So we must either personally witness the individual lighting the firework, or we must have somebody that's willing to step up and come forward and put their name on it that they saw the individual light the fireworks. Possession's a little different. It's much easier. We can just catch them in possession of the firework and issue a citation. Unfortunately and understandably, most residents that report the illegal use of fireworks do not want to get involved, and in many cases do not know the location where the fireworks are actually being discharged from. We plan on this year putting out numerous, like I said, special task force to go out leading up to and on the 4th of July to hopefully encourage our community to not engage in this activity. And if they do, we want them to know that there will be a price to be paid if they're contacted and caught. The Bell Gardens Police Department understands that we cannot solve this problem. However, it is our hope that we can make an impact and provide some relief for our residents, our pets, and our military veterans and others suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. Again, we're not naive enough to think that all the fireworks are going to go away. But what we're hoping is that through education and enforcement and through some special patrol and focus patrol, that we can hopefully make the quality of life a little bit better for our residents this holiday season. With that, I'll take any questions or concerns.
Chief, I do have some clarifying questions. When you mean that an officer has to attest or has to witness a firework go off, you did mention that residents who call in, so let's say an officer shows up and he didn't or she didn't see the actual firework being lit up. In order for the resident to step up, what does that mean exactly? Is there a document that they need to sign?
Yeah, they have to identify the individual and be willing to actually point out the individual that ignited them. If they don't want to step forward with an actual citizen's arrest of the individual, at least if they could give us direction, we can contact the individual and they still have, they're still in possession of. We may not be able to get them for igniting the firework, but we can get them for possession of the fireworks. Hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions from my colleagues? Comments?
Just one thing, Chief, thank you so much for this presentation. I appreciate all the efforts that our department is doing to make sure that we are enforcing the protections of those with PTSD and our pets and everyone that you mentioned. I would like to see city manager, and maybe Chief, you can help us out with your Instagram as well, to start like an early warning for our residents or just reminders of the ordinance and policies here in our city early on, like a full campaign to remind them, because it will really alleviate the phone calls that you will receive the day of and leading up to it. And also it would just kind of help all of us in general achieve our end goal here. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. And we do have a schedule on when we'll start putting out all the social media stuff. To start now would be a little bit early, but we're looking to do it. I'm not sure if it's the first week in June or mid-June where we're going to
Yes.
start.
Thank you so much, Chief. Sounds good.
Thank you.
So Mayor Barcena, if I could just comment too to the council, maybe specifically the Councilmember Flores as well. Last year also, we partnered with the city of Bell through our community services department to put up a joint billboard on the electronic billboard along the 710 to let people know that Bell Gardens and Bell both do not allow fireworks of any nature. In addition, we purchased and put banners up at the monuments leading into the city, so at Florence and Eastern, at Florence, over with the border with Downey. That way residents that have been here for a long time or those that have been here a short time that may not realize that fireworks are not allowed anymore. They may have been buying Safe and Sane fireworks for decades and may not follow council meetings and may not even watch social media. So if they're driving into the community from the grocery store, if a relative's coming by that's maybe coming over on the weekend of 4th of July, they'll see a banner and see that fireworks are not allowed. And so and then on top of that, we'll also do our social media approach that just shows the dangers of fireworks and things of that nature. So we've got a plan in place to inform people as well, not just kind of enforce
This.
compliance.
Thank you so much. It sounds like an excellent enforcement, Mike. Thank you.
If I can clarify a couple things real quick. I want to make sure our public knows it's not illegal. And what happens a lot of times is we'll go out to a call for service and the caller will expect a certain response and expect us to do certain things. So for instance, if they send us out to somebody lighting Safe and Sane fireworks, we can cite them for lighting the Safe and Sane fireworks. However, Safe and Sane fireworks are not illegal to possess. So we won't be confiscating those items and we won't be citing individuals who are possessing the Safe and Sane because they are legal in surrounding cities and they may be headed to other family events and so forth. So they're not illegal within the city of Bell Gardens. They're illegal to ignite and sell in the city of Bell Gardens. So hopefully that clarifies that. And then lastly, some of the stuff we didn't go into as far as our enforcement strategy are going to be stuff that we've never tried before. We're going to implement some outside the box ideas and some things to really address the individuals who are selling these fireworks to our community and especially to our young population.
Thank you, Chief. Can you please go back to maybe the second slide on your presentation? I have a question about some of the numbers that you presented to the council tonight.
I think I can do that. Let me try this.
It's the slide that has the number of calls that came in.
Okay.
That's the one. Thank you.
Okay.
So if I heard correctly, the way that you interpret this data was that the residents were being considerate, or can you repeat what you mentioned?
Well, I'm not sure if that was the right word, but yeah, I did say that we're all aware that there's way more than that. The problem is way more than 13 phone calls uh, on the 4th of July. We get a lot of mentions. We see them on the social media and stuff. People complaining about them, but they choose just not to call the police department and
Okay.
report them.
Do you have an idea why they might choose to not call the Bell Gardens Police Department?
Uh, could be several reasons. I would think, one, they don't want to get involved, which is why they'll sometimes say things on social media or stuff like that. Two is maybe they feel that even if they called, there's not a whole lot that's going to be done. Um, and three, like I mentioned earlier, is I think they understand that, it's kind of what happens on the 4th of July.
Yeah, 4th of July is a very loud day. I think we all are aware of that. However, the problem here really is the months and the weeks leading up to 4th of July, which I know many residents that have expressed their concerns, their dissatisfaction with the response that we gotten. I appreciate you bringing this data, and I want to ask you, how many citations did we give out, or how many tickets did we give out in regards to fireworks?
Off the top of my head, I would guess it was probably around 10, maybe less than 10.
Less than 10, like 5, or less than 10, like 8, 9, or?
I'm guessing right around 5. I don't have the exact numbers. I can get that for you though.
Thank you. So I'd like to know what that number is,
Okay.
because I highly suspect that the reason why Bell Gardens residents are not calling is because nothing is done about it. I personally called many times. I know it's very difficult to enforce. I completely understand the challenge. But I want to commend you for this year choosing to do something different. Do you mind please repeating what are the different things that you're going to do this year that may make it a little more successful in terms of enforcing the law?
Well, we'll be putting people out specifically for, and overtime spots, specifically for fireworks. That's different than last year due to finances and budget issues and concerns. We're definitely going to utilize some alternatives other than overtime as far as staffing, moving some folks around. We're going to focus, well, zero tolerance is another one. We're going to educate, which we have in the past, but we're going to educate people on what happens when they get involved and what exactly we need to be able to go out there and make the difference that they want, whether it's they want somebody cited or somebody to go to jail. It's rare if anybody will ever go to jail for fireworks unless they use them as a weapon or they're selling large quantities. But the other main focus is really to develop a strategy to go after individuals who are selling to our kids.
Okay, thank you. So if you guys get a call and let's say the neighbor has a video of their neighbor launching those explosions or whatnot, so they have the evidence, you guys are called, what are the consequences of that for the violator in that particular case?
Fines, $1,000 fine, I believe, and it increases every violation after that.
Okay.
I can get you the exact, we don't set the fine numbers or the amounts, but
Mhm.
I could get you exactly what those fines are. But
So
up
it's
to
a range of starting at 1,000 and escalating
starting-
thereafter.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, so I want to emphasize that the consequences are real. This is a violation of our law, and that the police officers are going to be out there enforcing the law, which is their job. And we're happy to see a difference this year. And I'm just very hopeful that there will be a difference not only for our veterans, not only for our pets, not only for the elderly, but also for just regular residents that need to go to work the next day and that keep getting disturbed during their sleep, because these explosions go off at very early hours of the morning. I'm talking about 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. So this is for all of our residents. This is really trying to make their lives better, in my opinion. So I want to commend you for putting together a plan to get this done this year. And that's my comment. Does anyone have anything to add?
I have a comment.
Okay.
I would like to thank our police department for all the efforts that you have. I understand the frustration that some of us may have in regards to the noise level and being unable to enforce when people have fireworks. I think if we take into consideration that in Bell Gardens, they have been legal for such a long time, and we do have a population of people that have been here for a long time as well, it's difficult to tell, let's say, my grandpa or my dad and tell them, suddenly you can't have fireworks anymore and that tradition is taken away. It's difficult to enforce. I think that we can do a better job in educating our community so that the enforcement and that bad guy approach with the police department doesn't just fall upon you. And I think that we're moving forward in the right direction. We just need to educate each other a little bit better and find new ways of celebrating tradition in new ways. I know that we have some laser project or plan in place, so maybe we
I
can,
wish we had to cancel that
or
one.
maybe
but
we need to push on that.
I,
So
I
that,
agree.
yeah, so that the 4th of July doesn't become this nightmare for everyone, for our family members, for our pets. But I am very thankful for our police department and all your efforts, even though um, so much is expected of our police officers. I thank you for everything that you have done and for the data, the presentation, and the support ongoing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. If I appreciate that, and thank you. If I could, I'd like everybody to know that, and our residents especially know that we are also very frustrated with the fact that we can't do much, or that we realize moving ahead, we can't solve this problem. We can make it better, and we understand that, and we're going to do everything we can. But this is an individual, a dispatcher who worked last 4th of July that sent me an email afterwards. And it says, I worked on the 4th of July, 2020. There were fireworks being set off in every part of the city. The callers would become very upset and angry because we asked them for descriptions of the subjects setting off the fireworks. We explained to the callers, we need descriptions or locations of where the fireworks are going off, so the officer could attempt to locate the subjects and cite them. It was very rare when the caller would provide a description. The callers were upset that the fireworks were being set off throughout the entire city, but they were unable to or unwilling to provide the information to us. The callers' frustration level was extreme, and it was caller after caller, basically what they say. They say, from the perspective of the officers, I was told it's very difficult to figure out who was setting off fireworks, especially when there were no fireworks going when there were fireworks going off in every direction. The phones rang nonstop that night for other calls for service, along with the firework complaints. At times, callers would also call 911 to report fireworks. Unless there is a fire or some type of emergency, please ask our callers to use the non-emergency phone lines. So we're very frustrated as well that we can't do a better job in this area, and that we can't provide the service to the expectation that that the callers are asking for. And a lot of the times, the callers don't know, and even if they wanted to get involved, they don't know where they're coming from either. They just know that they're going off, and that these fireworks are getting more and more violent. If I could, with the explosions and the amount of sparks and fire potential and hazard that is coming from these fireworks. So not only is the problem getting worse, but the actual devices are more dangerous. So we're committed to doing everything we can, and hopefully that makes a difference, and it's noticeable to our community.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that.
Mhm.
Any other comments?
Yes, Mayor. I'd just like to add, and just to concur with our Mayor Pro Tem as well, when I asked a clarifying question as to what does it take for us to be able to issue a citation, I think it's important to recognize that either an officer has to witness or there needs to be video evidence from what I inferred from that last question, or the residents needs to come forward. And if we all want to solve this, I do want to encourage our community to be courageous and come forward and really, provide these descriptions with regards to the people who are lighting up the fireworks. I know it's hard, and sometimes we don't want to seem antagonistic with our neighbors, but this is the only way that we're going to be able to resolve this issue. If we all come together to work as our community, the police officers can't do it by themselves, and we can't have this expectation that they can just cite anyone without there being proof. And I think that's the important part to recognize. So just encourage the community. Let's work together this year. We may not be able to have a 4th of July celebration again because of the COVID restrictions, but next year we will work very hard to provide you with some type of show or something that you can take your family to, because we understand that we took fireworks away, and it was with the mindset of creating a healthier community, as well as reducing our footprint overall. And I think all cities need to move forward in that direction. And as Mayor Protem mentioned, let's just find new ways to celebrate. But do encourage everyone to come forward, help us out a little bit, help us help you. That way we can slowly start to eliminate this problem. Also, I think not a lot of residents are aware that fireworks are illegal, even though it's been 2 years in implementation. So that's another piece that we do need to continue to work on, and it's going to take some time. That's at least my opinion. It's going to take some years for our community to A, embrace, and 2, for everyone to be educated with regards to this matter. That is all. Thank you.
If I could, real quick, for our residents, if they can still call in anonymously. We may not be able to cite, like I said, we may not be able to cite the individual for igniting the fireworks if they still want to remain anonymous. But what we need them to do is provide us information to get us in the right area to contact individuals who may possess additional fireworks, to at least be able to confiscate those so they don't continue. And 2, to allow us to knock on some doors or to contact some parties outside or whatever it is to encourage them and attempt to maybe impact what may take place after we leave. So again, they can remain anonymous. We would prefer that they're able to lead us right to the individual, but we understand, and we know that the best way for us to impact it is just to get some information to put us in the right area. There's some officer safety issues where we just walk down into backyards or areas, because a lot of times they're also firing handguns and doing things like that. And we don't want to walk around the corner thinking we're having fireworks and we're now engaged in something different. But the only thing I can do is I want our community to understand that we want to impact this problem in a productive and a manner to where their quality of life is improved. And we want to work with them in doing that through education and enforcement. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chief, and thank you to my colleagues for providing your perspectives that will always continue to help us making better choices. I will go ahead and ask to the receive and file. Do I have a motion for that? Okay, I'll make a motion to receive and file. Can I have a second?
Cortez.
Second by Cortez. We're gonna take it to a vote. Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
Thank you. Cortez?
Yes.
Thank you. Flores? Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Pulido?
Yes.
Thank you, and yes for myself, so motion carries to receive and file. City Manager, will you please announce discussion item number 10?
Yes, thanks again, Mayor Barcena. This item is the request for an approval of an employment agreement and the appointment of a retiree to basically fill the Recreation Community Services Director position. So Rosanna Danto has been the Recreation Community Services Director for a little over a year and a half now. Came out of retirement at that time. I did the recruitment in-house, selected Roseanne. She came out of retirement. Excited about the prospects of working for this community, from the aquatic center just to I think a lot of improvements that she saw that would be beneficial to the city of Bell Gardens. And so as the staff report states, Roseanne is technically retired again on April 30th, so about 10 days ago. And what I'm requesting and making recommendation to council is that we hire Roseanne back as the Director of Recreation Community Services with the expectation of full-time work, same as it's been before, for the foreseeable future. At some point, there will most likely be state law that has been removed currently that would require that she cannot work more than 960 hours in a fiscal year. So again, I say foreseeable future, full-time work, and when that law comes back into place, obviously we would have to abide by that law. We'd have about 5 to 6 months of that 960 hours of full-time work to, talk to Rosanna either about coming back out of retirement or we conduct a recruitment at that point in time. What this item really boils down to is continuity with cost savings. So the continuity portion of it would be to maintain our Recreation Community Services Director as we've had for the last 18 months. And also just it's secondarily here, it works out that there is cost savings to the city of about $50,000 per year. Because she would be a retiree by law, we're limited to base pay. We won't be paying for medical benefits, retirement, leaves, things of that nature. And just as a reminder of some of the things that I think Roseanne has brought to the table as the director, particularly in light of the COVID environment, a lot of times people see that job and they say, oh, that's the Parks and Rec director. Technically it's the Recreation Community Services Director. And I think as recreation has been somewhat limited during COVID, Roseanne's really been able to shine on the community service side of things. We're talking food security programs, rent relief, the Family Service Center, vaccinations, scholarships, work on the aquatic center, really moving things forward. That's in addition to, the first few months she was here, the recreation programs, and then now that we're coming out of COVID with the additional recreation programs, I think the council generally recognizes we have a dynamic director in that position. She brings a lot of energy, a lot of experience, and a lot of talent to that department and to the city of Bell Gardens. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. My recommendation would be to approve this item. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. I'm going to my colleagues now to ask for comments or questions in regards to this
Mayor?
item.
I just want to say, I'd like to vouch 100% for our Parks and Recs or Recreation. I forget what the order is, but for our director, although she may be enjoying retirement, I do enjoy having her in the city. She has a lot of projects that are on a continuing basis and a lot of initiatives that she did bring to the city, and I would like to see the fulfillment of those projects. One of those being our pool, which is of extreme importance to our city. The other is our community services center, which she began to develop, and it's been her vision. I believe she's brought a lot of great things to our city, including money to support our recreation department. Through agreements that she's been able to accomplish with the state and with the county, she's been very resourceful. And not only that, but we're also going to be saving some money. So I think at least in the interim for now, I would like to see Roseanne back and working for the city. I think she's a vital and critical element of our city, especially as it pertains to COVID. She has been very instrumental to bring food drives, to bring resources to the community, to activate her staff to really service the needs of Bell Gardens, not only Bell Gardens, but also other cities who often call our community services department for help in various processes. And not only that, but even the county was very amazed with the work that was being done in the city of Bell Gardens, to the point where we were asked to process a lot of different applications for the county, and that brought in revenue as well to fund that department. So in my opinion, I think it's 100% worth it to bring our recreation or to bring Roseanne back to our department.
Thank you, Councilmember Cortez. Any other comments or questions from my colleagues?
I have a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
I agree with Alejandra in regards to all the accomplishments that Roseanne has in the last year and a half or so. But I would feel more comfortable with either bringing her back for a month or so while recruiting somebody else. I don't feel comfortable with having no end date to the contract, because we are going to be paying part of the pension and the contract. I feel like that would be a little bit of double dipping for the city. And I know the waiver is in place. I don't feel comfortable utilizing it long term, because I think that is supposed to be for an emergency, and the retirement was a decision. So I think that if She chose to retire and she wishes to relax or do whatever she wishes, and we should just look for a long-term person for the community.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Mayor Barsana, if I may.
Please go ahead.
So I went ahead and I prepared a statement for this item. I'm going to go ahead and read it now. So, in my many interactions with recreation and community services department staff at various events, I've been made aware of many displeasures and inequities within the department and leadership. Though I am aware and appreciate all the accomplishments the department has done within this last year during this challenging times with COVID, I'm concerned about the department's future and leadership. Employees feel excluded from the decision-making process with many of the major decisions affecting the department. They express concerns of not being fully aware or up to date on projects and programs being worked on within the department. They feel disenfranchised in processes such as budgeting and staff placement. Staff do not feel a sense of equality when it comes to accountability. They do not feel a sense of team and seek a leader. Leadership is about motivating and inspiring your people to believe in a great purpose that benefits them as professionals and people. And still larger than that, to believe in a greater good that benefits this community of Bell Gardens. Unfortunately, what I've experienced and witnessed within this department is a severe deficiency in leadership. I can only imagine how much more goodness we can achieve with true leadership, where creativity flourishes and inclusivity drives inspiration. With that said, I really hope my colleagues can consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. Anybody else have questions or comments in regards to this item?
I think that leads me right before your comments, Mayor. So I'll just take the floor now. I want to express my gratitude to Roseanne for all of the work that she's done here in our city. Your retirement did come to a surprise to me. However, it doesn't change what you have done in our city. I do realize that you do have different ways in managing, but it has not stopped you from being able to execute all projects. And because of that, I want to thank you, and I hope that you have the support today to continue in our city, because I'm all about, saving the dollars in our city, and what you're doing is, you know, it's it's beneficial to us as far as our monetary and financial status is. So I would foresee and hopefully see you here in the future. All of the programs that have been here have been very beneficial to the community, and it's who we serve. And for those reasons, I would like to support Roseanne's extension. I realize that's not a motion yet, but that would be my statement.
Thank you, Councilmember Flores. My comments in regards to this item, I see a huge opportunity here to keep someone that has proven herself in the field of recreation and community services with an emphasis in community services. As our city manager mentioned, when she came on board prior to COVID-19, we were focused mostly on recreational activities, and personally being an employee of the city for over a decade, I know for a fact that there was a vacuum when it came to our services. Fortunately, this leader allowed that to flourish during a very crucial time. And now we have so many services that I'm extremely proud of, that thanks to her input were made possible. So having seen directors all across the Southeast, and having worked in a department for many, many years here, and seeing different leadership styles, yes, there will be different leadership everywhere you go. But at the end of the day, what you have to look at is you have to look at the results. And I think that the results that we have seen have been concrete, they have been factual, and I think it's something that we can always look back and rely on. And for that reason, I think it will be a huge benefit for the city to not throw away that opportunity to continue to work with with the talent that this director has to bring to the table, and maybe perhaps use it, as the city manager mentioned, as a transitional tool in this process of retiring, and also perhaps leave a more solid foundation for whoever the next director will be. So for that reason, I also feel that I would support it, but I want to make sure that I did hear comments from our Mayor Pro Tem and a suggestion, and I was wondering if you wanted to turn that into a motion. I know that you wanted to do something with a month to to only keep her for a month. Okay. Do you mind if you would be so kind as to maybe speak into the microphone and just clarify your motion so that I can so that we can record that?
I would like to motion to offer a contract to Roseanne through the fiscal year while searching for a long-term director.
Thank you. So that's a motion by Mayor Pro Tem. My motion is going to be to follow the staff recommendation here. Before I do that, I want to see if there's a second for the motion for Mayor Pro Tem. Okay, seeing none, I will go ahead and make my motion to follow staff recommendation,
I'll go ahead and second that.
and that will be a second by Councilmember Flores.
And I just wanted to make a comment really quickly. You know, I'd love to support your motion, Maria, and I'd love to support you. And I think that there's ways that we can bridge that, you know, but I have to say that hiring somebody is so not easy. It's actually really hard. And we went 6 months without a city manager, you know, and it was really difficult. And in that process, when we, you know, had to let go of our current Parks and Rec director, our city was it was left quite a mess. And I have to say that it's a really tough decision to be able to, you know, let go of somebody, but it has been, to me, it's really easy to be able to, you know, stay with Roseanne. And so for those reasons, I really hope that you guys understand that it's really hard, but we can do it. We can bridge it where we can all be happy and work with our city manager for a better future, you know, for our employees and for the residents. And yeah, that's what I have to say.
Sorry, my mic was off. Thank you, Councilmember Flores. So I did have a motion to follow staff recommendation and a second by Councilmember Flores. I will go ahead and take it to a vote. And I will start with Chavez.
Nope.
Okay, that's a no for Chavez. Cortez,
Yes.
yes. Flores,
Yes.
yes for Flores. Mayor Pro Tem Pulido,
No.
no for Mayor Pro Tem Pulido. And it's a yes for myself. So motion carries to follow staff recommendation that the city council approve resolution number 2021-41 in an agreement with retiree Rosanna Danto, who retired on April 30th, 2021, to fill the vacancy of Director of Recreation and Community Services on an interim basis pursuant to the governor's executive order N 2520. Okay, now we are moving into public participation on non-agenda items. Public participation is now open for non-agenda items. City Clerk, are there any speakers?
We have one individual that submitted a email, and so I'll go ahead and read it. It's from Connie Valadez. Hello, my name is Connie Valadez. I am a junior Girl Scout from Bell Gardens. I have a take action project that I have to do, and my problem is that in Quinn Street, where I live, there are a lot of cars that have high speed. There was even an accident, and my solution is to add speed bumps. And this is why I'm emailing you today. I hope you get to read this and take a moment to discuss this. Thank you, sincerely, Connie Valadez. And that concludes public comment, Mayor.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. If there's no objection by the City Council, I will close public participation. We will now move to council comments, and we will begin with Councilmember Chavez.
Thank you so much for that, Mayor Barcena. So, a couple of comments I just want to make. So, I went ahead and I attended the May 1st food distribution at our Veterans Park. It was a great event. Glad to see that a lot of our residents are coming out. It was the first of the month, right? So, first of the month, rent is due, right, for our community. Um, so our food distribution events begins around 9:30, 10 o'clock, give or take. Depending on how long the line is. So, you know, tend to go for about 2 hours, 10 to 12. By the time it was about 11:15, we had run out of food, right? Within 1 hour. I think that says a lot of our community. So I'm glad that we're still having our food distributions, and I'll make sure to attend this weekend as well, this Saturday as well. Um, May 4th, we had our COVID vaccine clinic at the high school. Glad to see that our community got vaccinated. Glad to see that I think out of all the vaccines that we had available, I think there was only about 6 of them left. That's great to hear. I was able to attend and make sure that our community, advocate that our community come out and really take advantage of this opportunity to get vaccinated. What better way than it's in our own backyard, right? In our own high school, even better. So while that was going on, we had our Bell Gardens soccer team, Bell Gardens High School soccer team playing against Montebello, or how we used to call it back when I was there in high school, we used to call it Monkey Bello. Um, so, anyways, it was great to see that our Bell Gardens High School students were playing against Montebello, and we did win, and we became league champs. So that's always awesome, and we're headed to CIF. Probably we're already at CIF. I haven't checked in with the scores or any of that. But that was great to hear. And then let's see. Um, I noticed we have a scholarship program available for our students to apply. Really want to encourage all students living in Bell Gardens, all graduating students from Bell Gardens High School to take advantage of this incredible opportunity. I believe the deadline for the application is May 28th. So you got about 18 days, about 2.5 weeks. So make sure you take advantage of this opportunity. What better way than from a scholarship coming directly from your city. So May 28th, don't forget that deadline is in about 2.5 weeks. Another COVID vaccine clinic happening in Veterans Park this time. This is going to be on, I believe it's on the 12th, so Wednesday this week, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. We got to continually get our numbers up as a city. We got to take advantage of this opportunity. And now, instead of being at the high school, it's at our Veterans Park. That's where we had our first clinic, and I'm glad to see that we're having it again. And we're going to have from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. So a large window. Come during lunchtime. Sometimes there usually is no line except for the morning rush. But after that, we'll continually take folks in. I want to go ahead and just say Mother's Day paint party event happening at our senior center. It's from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. This Thursday. Make sure that all of the mothers here in the community know about this and take advantage of this. Senior Center, I believe you have to pre-register to attend, but I may be wrong. I don't know if city manager can clarify on that, on the Mother's Day paint party.
I'll clarify before you're finished, Councilmember Chavez.
And I believe there's pretty much it. I did have another comment about the circulation element plan. This was this plan that we got in general about transportation in our community, and whether we use bikes, walking, cars, and whatnot. I got to fill it out. I believe I got to speak with staff from the city to see how many of these surveys we got. The number wasn't really high. I believe we didn't get more than like 20, I believe. So let's make sure we continually take advantage of this and fill out this other survey. The deadline was extended, and we have to the 14th of May. So again, it's important. And with that said, hopefully everyone's had a great Mother's Day weekend. I want to give a quick shout out to my mom. Hopefully she's watching, and thank you for being awesome. I appreciate it. And that's it. Your mic's off, Mike.
Councilmember Chavez, it is at 1 p.m. on May 13th, which is Thursday, Mother's Day paint party.
Do they need to
And,
pre-register?
No, Actually, yeah, they do need to register and mask wearing is required as well. So they call the senior center at 562-334-1779. So they call the senior center, register, they'll be fine.
Awesome. Okay. Again, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And with that said, I'll go ahead and end my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, council member, and thank you, Mike. Now moving on to Councilwoman Cortez comments.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to begin by saying Feliz Dia de las Madres to all of our moms who are listening. Whether you celebrated yesterday or you're celebrating today, I hope you're having a wonderful celebration. I do want to mention that I did have the pleasure of donating 50 rose bouquets this morning to our Westminster Court senior moms. Unfortunately, I had a final, so I wasn't able to stay to distribute the bouquets, but I hope they liked them from what I hear from staff. They did like them. I know it's been a tough time, a rough time for all of our seniors who are in our different centers around the city because they've been isolated for most of the year. So hopefully this brought some light to them. Other than that, I want to say have a good week and thank you again to staff for everything you do every single day.
Thank you, Councilmember Cortez. Councilwoman Flores.
Yes. Um, Hello, everybody. I wanted to start off with because it is what was it, Peace Officer Week, right? I wanted to strongly, as someone individual who strongly believes that in ending gun violence, I want to just congratulate K9 Boss and Officer Katani on their success. They've successfully removed illegal guns throughout the city, multiple a week. And that's amazing because those are guns that are off the streets, guns that are away from our kids, that are away from our families, causing danger. And it's a really difficult job, and because us most of you know, Katani is actually a local resident who grew up here in Bell Gardens, went to Bell Gardens High Schools, and I see the exposure that he's putting himself out there, taking away these guns, because he knows where they're at. So if you have an illegal, if you're in possession of a legal gun, he's coming for you. And I, I hope, I really want to end gun violence. I believe that we could. And this is just a small step, one big step happening here in BJ. So thank you to Officer Kanan Boss and Officer Katani. For Mother's Day, I want to wish all of the wonderful mamas from Bell Gardens happy Mother's Day a todas las señoras, nuestras mamás latinas de El Salvador, Nicaragua, Puerto Rico, México, todas que hoy se celebra. Feliz Día de las Madres a ustedes. Yo también tuve privilegio on over the weekend. As you guys know, I had a Mother's Day giveaway. So I delivered to their homes to many different moms here in our city, flowers and little gifts. Everybody got something different. And some moms cried, some moms cried a lot. Everybody was really emotional and very grateful. And it just makes me very, very happy. So thank you to all of the moms and all the little moms and younger daughters who nominated their parents and their aunts and their ninas and people who babysat them throughout the years. Those all, they were all very grateful to you. Also, on the topic of moms, I just want to help you to invite you all to come enroll on the new outdoor fitness. It's gonna be a mommy and me outdoor class. After a pandemic and after a baby, there's nothing more I would like to do than be out there working out with other moms. This new program really tackles a lot of obstacles, right? Number one, just being able to be outdoors with your mom and socialize with other moms. That's super exciting, and you come to a level of understanding, right? And then there's this other portion of it. Like, for instance, me, after having my second, actually both my kids, I suffered from really bad postpartum depression. And just getting out there and working out really does help that. And it kind of helps you just talk to other moms and see what they went through, whether their kids is like a year or 6 years. It's great that we're going to be able to socialize in this way and be able to work out. And it does also remove the financial burden of it, right? Because for instance, me, I work and I take my kids with me. I have that luxury. However, that's not the case for everybody. And we have to choose whether we can pay for childcare for us to while we go to work, or some of us are just at home all day working with our kids, doing the school stuff, the house duties, and we don't have the option to go out and just go to the gym and work out. There's just never a break. And to be able to have this where we can bring our kids and we don't have to worry about what's going on with them while we're out working out, now there's this here that's available, and that makes me really happy, and it's very exciting for me. And I want to thank Roseanne, who was able to act on this immediately after we had a conversation. And then when we had the conversation, she told me, Lisette, like what you're saying, like don't worry about it, it's already in the works. And And that's exciting for me because it's a resource that all of the moms here in Bell Gardens are going to be able to enjoy. And I know it's being named family, so I know dads are going to be welcome. So there's that, I guess. Either way, so hopefully, you guys get to enjoy me. It's gonna start pretty soon. It's gonna be outdoors. It's gonna be safe. It is gonna be a female trainer. So hopefully you guys can join me. I'm gonna definitely be there with my stroller, my double stroller. So wish me luck. But on another note, as you guys know, as of today, teenagers over 12 will be eligible to be vaccinated. And this is really exciting news because as we know, some of the people that were the main carriers were, our teenagers. So we really want to make sure that we get our kids vaccinated and just add that layer of protection and just herd immunity to our population. We know that President Biden and our federal government has sent a lot of assistance down to us through our megapods, pop-up clinics, mobile clinics, everything for us to be vaccinated. And it seems like everybody who wanted to get vaccinated got it already, but there's still that small population that's hesitant. And in my delivery of flowers, I found that some of the people that had not been vaccinated were people who were undocumented because they really just didn't genuinely believe that their information was not going to be captured for future references. And I just want to speak to them now. Por favor, su información es completamente, your information is what is it, protected? How do you say it? Protegida?
Confidencial.
Confidencial, thank you, sorry, I got interpreter. Su información es confidencial. So, por favor, tómense la vacuna, nadie se va a quedar con su información. No, en casos yo vi que estaban aceptando hasta una tarjeta de Costco. O sea, lo que sea porque ellos quieren ayudarlas a ustedes que se vacunen. So please, we have a lot of resources. Our LA County reps have been here looking at ways to get creative. We even started giving incentives like $5 what is it, gift cards to our students to get vaccinated. I mean, we're getting creative now because we're at the place where you no longer want to get vaccinated. Please get vaccinated. Please get informed. If you need to get educated on something, please reach out to us. There's so many resources available, and yeah, it's just really important. So I myself have advocated for it for a very long time, but I haven't done this alone. And at this point, I want to really thank all of the LA County reps that have been out here helping and just like literally been on the ground day in, day out, begging basically people to get vaccinated. And to those who have helped me as well, I want to thank you. And for everybody else who hasn't been vaccinated yet, please take advantage of the resources. They're there for you and now for your children. So with that said, I hope everybody has a good night. Again, Feliz de las Madres. And espero que sigan participando en nuestras juntas porque su voz y su opinión es la razón por la cual nosotros estamos aquí abogando por ustedes, pero sin ustedes no podemos hacer nada. Así es que, por favor, continúen aquí. Y the last point, sorry guys, at this point I want to give direction to Mike. If we can please, on our last inspection, I guess I would say, of Fort Park, we noticed that there was paint that had been completely chipped on the riverbed side. Sorry, I'm being thrown off because I can hear the interpreter. I don't know what happened, but I can hear everything she's saying, and it's kind of interfering with my thoughts. Anywho, so the entire gate has been completely chipped. So if we can please get it repainted, and then there's along the riverbed, that wall with rocks, it's full of graffiti. Graffiti. It's the same gang. It says Brookstown all over it, nonstop. So we can paint a big "Welcome to Bell Garden" sign. A lot of the bikers suggested that that's something that would be beneficial, so they know where they're at, and it's aesthetically pleasing as well. So I don't know if we have to get our Bell Gardens high school students involved to come out and paint that, or we can do it ourselves. If we can please take over and make sure that we're beautifying our parks inside and out, and that's something that we can actually do that would really uplift the looks of our park. Let's go ahead and take care of that. And that'll be all for me tonight. Good night.
Thank you, Councilmember Flores. Mayor Pro Tem Pulido.
I just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight and happy Mother's Day. Thank you.
Thank you. And my comments for today are just happy Mother's Day. Feliz Día de las Madres a todas las mamás. And also, I want to encourage our residents to continue to be involved in the council meetings. I want to thank Mr. Marin for having good communication, inquiring about the issues that are relevant to him. We need our residents to involve themselves, to voice in their concerns, complaints, opinions, because that's what makes our council meeting successful. In my opinion, it's an important element. So I noticed that today we had a small lapse in the amount of participants. So don't slack off, guys. Come back to the meetings. We want to hear from you. We want to make sure that we know what your issues are, how we can help. And again, thank you to residents that still stay engaged. Thank you to staff who did a great job. And thank you to my colleagues who are also trying to do what's best for the city of Bell Gardens. And you guys have a great night. Thank you for a great meeting. Good night.